Okay, today is 29th of July, and we are on the 14th chapter of the Samyutta Nikaya, Dhatu Samyutta. Today we come to Sutta 14.12, the 12th Sutta in the 14th Samyutta at Savatthi. Buddha said, monks, sensual thought arises with a source, not without a source. Thought of ill will arises with a source, not without a source. Thought of harming arises with a source, not without a source. I'll stop here for a moment. These three things, sensual thoughts, thoughts of ill will and thoughts of harming, are wrong thoughts. In the Noble Eightfold Path, the second factor is right thoughts. And right thoughts are the opposite of these three thoughts. So these are the three wrong thoughts, not the right thoughts. And the Buddha said, and how is this so? Independence on the sensuality element, there arises a sensual perception. Independence on sensual perception, there arises sensual intention. Independence on sensual intention, there arises sensual desire. Independence on sensual desire, there arises sensual passion. Independence on sensual passion, there arises a sensual quest. Engaged in a sensual quest, the uninstructed worldling conducts himself wrongly in three ways, with body, speech and mind. I'll stop here for a moment. So here it says, first there must be this sensuality element. The sensuality element, according to the commentary, is the sensual thoughts and all sense sphere phenomena. You can say like sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touch. These are the sense sphere phenomena. So you have after you have this sensual element, then you have perception of it, and perception gives rise to sensual intention, and then that gives rise to desire, that gives rise to passion, that gives rise to quest, and after the quest you attain what you want. Then to continue, independence on the ill will element, there arises perception of ill will. Independence on perception of ill will, there arises intention of ill will. Independence on intention of ill will, there arises desire driven by ill will. Independence on desire driven by ill will, there arises passion driven by ill will. Independence on passion driven by ill will, there arises a quest driven by ill will. Engaged in a quest driven by ill will, the uninstructed worldling conducts himself wrongly in three ways, with body, speech and mind. Similarly, for the harmfulness element, independence on the harmfulness element, there arises perception of harming, and then it gives rise to intention to harm, etc., and then conducts himself wrongly. Suppose, monks, a man would drop a blazing grass torch into a thicket of dry grass. If he does not extinguish it quickly with his hands and feet, the creatures living in the grass and wood will meet with calamity and disaster. So too, if any ascetic or Brahmin does not quickly abandon, dispel, obliterate and annihilate the unrighteous perceptions that have arisen in him, he dwells in suffering in this very life, with vexation, despair and fever, and with the breakup of the body after death. A bad destination may be expected for him. Let's stop here for a moment. So, the Buddha says, because of these three elements, let's see what the commentary says about this ill will element. Is, according to the commentary, is thought of ill will, or ill will itself, hatred. And then this harmfulness element, according to the commentary, harmfulness element is the thought of harmfulness and harmfulness itself. So you see, like this sensuality element here, I say it's sensual thoughts and sense sphere phenomena. But on the ill will element is something inside of us, the ill will inside us, and the harmfulness element also. So it could be also that this sensuality element is also something inside us. We have this tendency towards sensual desire. So that's why This could be the sensuality element that gives rise to sensual perception. And this sensual perception arises from, according to other suttas, arises from the feature of attractiveness. If, for example, you see something or you hear something and it appears attractive to you, maybe because of habit, then it gives rise to the sensual perception. But in the sutta, it's also stated that this perception can be changed. For example, it is normal for a man to be attracted to a woman's body and vice versa, for the woman to be attracted to a man's body. But with the cultivation of this unattractiveness of the body, meditation on the unattractiveness of the body, that means cultivate meditation on the 32 parts of the body. Then we, instead of seeing a body just skin deep, just outside, then after you practice meditation on 32 parts of the body, then you will be able to see more clearly or perceive more clearly all the parts inside the body. In which case, the body doesn't become so attractive anymore. So the sensual perception can be changed. It's only due to habit. So something to note. Then to continue, monks, thought of renunciation arises with a source, not without a source. Thought of non-ill arises with a source, not without a source. Thought of harmlessness arises with a source, not without a source. Let's stop here for a moment. These three things, renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness is the opposite of the other three that we just read just now. And these three are the right thoughts, thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of non-ill will, and thoughts of harmlessness. This non-ill will can also be loving kindness. And how is this so? In dependence on the renunciation element, there arises perception of renunciation. In dependence on perception of renunciation, there arises intention of renunciation. In dependence on intention of renunciation, there arises desire for renunciation. In dependence on desire for renunciation, there arises passion for renunciation. In dependence on passion for renunciation, there arises a quest for renunciation. Engaged in a quest for renunciation, the instructed noble disciple conducts himself rightly in three ways, with body, speech and mind. And similarly, for the non-ill will element and for the harmlessness element, first arises the element itself, and then the perception of it, and then intention, etc. Suppose, monks, a man would drop a blazing grass torch into a thicket of dry grass. If he quickly extinguishes it with his hands and feet, the creatures living in the grass and wood will not meet with calamity and disaster. So too, if any ascetic or Brahmin quickly abandons, dispels, obliterates and annihilates the unrighteous perceptions that have arisen in him, he dwells happily in this very life, without vexation, despair and fever. And with the breakup of the body after death, a good destination may be expected for him. It's the end of the sutta. So here you can see, in the first case, if you have wrong thoughts, then it leads you along that path until you conduct yourself wrongly in body, speech and mind. That means you create evil karma. And then if you understand that, then you should quickly try to dispel, obliterate the wrong perceptions that have arisen, the unrighteous perceptions or the evil, unwholesome perceptions. Otherwise, if you follow those perceptions and you create wrong karma, then you'll suffer in this lifetime and after this lifetime. On the other hand, if you cultivate right thoughts, then you will create wholesome karma and you will attain happiness in this life and in the future. 14.15. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Rajagaha on Mount Vulture Peak. Now, on that occasion, not far from the Blessed One, the Venerable Sariputta was walking back and forth with a number of monks. Similarly, the Venerable Mahamoggallana, Venerable Mahakassapa, Venerable Anuruddha, Venerable Puna Mantani Putta, Venerable Upali, Venerable Ananda were walking up and back and forth with a number of monks. And not far from the Blessed One, Devadatta too was walking back and forth with a number of monks. Stop here for a moment. These mentioned here are the great disciples of the Buddha, well-known disciples of the Buddha. Then the Blessed One addressed the monks thus, "Monks, do you see Sariputta walking back and forth with a number of monks?" "Yes, noble sir." "All those monks are of great wisdom." "Do you see Moggallana walking back and forth with a number of monks?" "Yes, noble sir." "All those monks have great psychic power." "Do you see Kassapa walking back and forth with a number of monks?" "Yes, noble sir." "All those monks are proponents of the ascetic practices." I'll stop here for a moment. So here, because the first one is Sariputta, Sariputta was walking back and forth with his disciples. And since Sariputta is of great wisdom, his disciples are also of great wisdom, because the teacher teaches the disciples what he knows. And similarly, Moggallana has great psychic power, so those of his disciples also have great psychic power. Kassapa is famous for ascetic practices, the dutangas, and so his disciples are also the same. Do you see Anuruddha walking back and forth with a number of monks? Yes, noble sir. All those monks possess the divine eye or heavenly eye. Do you see Puna Mantaniputta walking back and forth with a number of monks? Yes, noble sir. All those monks are speakers on the Dhamma. Do you see Upali walking back and forth with a number of monks? Yes, noble sir. All those monks are upholders of the Vinaya, monastic discipline. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, after that we have Anuruddha. Anuruddha is divine eye, heavenly eye, is so powerful. It seems he can see 1,000 world systems like in the palm of his hand. His mind has opened up so much that he can see 1,000 worlds, so small in the palm of his hand. And then Puna Mantaniputta is also a Sakyan, and he's famous as a great speaker of the Dhamma. So his disciples are also like him. And then Rabbi Upali, if I'm not mistaken, used to be a barber for the Buddha and the other. So he is famous for the knowledge of the Vinaya, and similarly his disciples. You see Ananda walking back and forth with a number of monks. Yes, noble sir. All those monks are highly learned. Highly learned here means they have a good knowledge of the suttas, the discourses of the Buddha. You see Devadatta walking back and forth with a number of monks. Yes, noble sir. All those monks have evil wishes, being greedy. Monks, it is by way of elements that beings come together and unite. Those of an inferior disposition come together and unite with those of an inferior disposition. Those of a good disposition come together and unite with those of a good disposition. In the past they did so. In the future they will do so. And now at present they do so too. And that's the end of the sutta. So like the English saying, birds of the same feather flock together. So people of the same character, they come together. Those wise people, they like to mix with wise people. Fools like to mix with fools, etc. Drinkers like to mix with drinkers. Jolly kakis like to mix with jolly kakis. Okay, now we come to the next Sangyutta. It's Anamatagga Sangyutta. It discourses concerned with without discoverable beginning. What is without discoverable beginning? Is the time or the world itself does not have a beginning. In other words, time has no beginning. Later you see the Buddha also says that time has no end, no limits to the beginning and the end of time. 15.1. On one occasion the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There the Blessed One addressed the monks thus, "Monks." "Noble sir," those monks replied. The Blessed One said this, "Monks, this samsara is without discoverable beginning." Samsara means the round of rebirths. The first point is not discern of beings roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. Suppose, monks, a man would cut up whatever grass, sticks, branches and foliage there are in this Jambudipa and collect them together into a single heap. This Jambudipa is land of the rose apple, the Jambu, meaning India. Having done so, he would put them down, saying for each one, "This is my mother, this is my mother's mother." The sequence of that man's mothers and grandmothers would not come to an end. Yet the grass, wood, branches and foliage in this Jambudipa would be used up and exhausted. For what reason? Because monks, this samsara is without discoverable beginning. The first point is not discern of beings roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. For such a long time, monks, you have experienced suffering, anguish and disaster, and swelled the cemetery. It is enough to experience revulsion towards all volitions, enough to become dispassionate towards them, enough to be liberated from them. That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha is saying that if we collected the grass, the sticks, the branches, foliage, leaves and all that, and we put them in a pile, and for every pile we say this is our mother, this is our mother's mother, this is our grandmother's mother, this is our grandmother's mother's mother, etc. All the grass and sticks and branches and leaves in India would be used up, and still you haven't counted your ancestors, haven't finished counting your ancestors. So the meaning here is that we have been in samsara for so long. It's hard to imagine how long we have been going on the round of rebirths. And yet it seems like we are just born the first time into this world. So our ignorance, our cake of ignorance, the layer of ignorance covering us is so deep, we can't even remember our past one lifetime. So the Buddha says it is enough to experience revulsion towards all volitions, enough to be dispassionate towards them. These volitions here, it says formations, but the word is sankhara. So you can say volitions are what conditions other things. Volitions, when we exercise volition, then we continue on the round of rebirths. Volition is connected with our craving. Next sutta 15.3, Buddha said in Savatthi, monks, this samsara is without discoverable beginning. The first point is not discern of beings roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. What do you think, monks? Which is more, the stream of tears that you have shed as you roamed and wandered on through this long course, weeping and wailing because of being united with the disagreeable and separated from the agreeable, this or the water in the four great oceans? These four great oceans, I guess, refers to the big ocean in the heavens. And the disciples said, as we understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, Venerable Sir, the stream of tears that we have shed as we roamed and wandered through this long course, weeping and wailing because of being united with the disagreeable and separated from the agreeable, this alone is more than the waters of the four great oceans. Good monks, it is good that you understand the Dhamma taught by me in such a way. The stream of tears that you have shed as you roamed and wandered through this long course, weeping and wailing because of being united with the disagreeable and separated from the agreeable, this alone is more than the waters in the four great oceans. For a long time, monks, you have experienced the death of a mother. As you have experienced this, weeping and wailing because of being united with the disagreeable and separated from the agreeable, the stream of tears that you have shed is more than the waters of the four great oceans. For a long time, monks, you have experienced the death of a father, or the death of a brother, or a sister, or a son, or a daughter, the loss of relatives, the loss of wealth, loss through illness. As you have experienced this weeping and wailing because of being united with the disagreeable and separated from the agreeable, the stream of tears that you have shed is more than the waters in the four great oceans. For what reason? Because, monks, this samsara is without discoverable beginning. It is enough to experience revulsion towards all volitions, enough to become dispassionate towards them, enough to be liberated from them. It's the end of this sutta. So, there have been a lot of reasons for us to cry. Sometimes because of the death of some relative, sometimes because we lose our property, because we did something wrong, we were tortured by the king, tortured by soldiers, tortured by enemies, and you cried and cried. And you have been sick. The sickness so painful made you cry. So all these many reasons for us to cry. And we have cried so much. It's more than the waters in the oceans. But the thing about this Mara is very strong. Sometimes when we suffer, we feel so disgusted. For many people, they say want to give up everything, want to practice the holy life. But Mara will tempt us, and then very soon we forgot about our suffering already. There are things to enjoy, and we start laughing, and we forgot about our sorrow. Just like sometimes some men, the wife passes away, he feels so dejected, almost wants to commit suicide. Later, he becomes attracted to some other lady and gets married and forgot all about his sorrow already. It's very common. So that's why the Buddha says Mara is very strong. And Mara also says, you cannot escape from me. So that's why we cry so much, and yet every time we come back and still want to enjoy the world. 15.5. At Ch.15, then a certain monk approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and said to him, Venerable Sir, how long is an aeon? This aeon refers to a kappa, a world cycle. A world cycle has 4 stages. Firstly, like now, the world exists, and we will exist for a long time. This is one stage. Then after that, it will start to disintegrate. And this process of disintegrating takes a long time before it finally disintegrates. Then after it disintegrates, there will be a period when there's no world, and that also is a long time. And then after that, the formation of the world, what you call in the Bible, Genesis, the world starts to form. That also takes a long time until finally the world has come into existence. So these 4 stages is one world cycle. Here it says an aeon. In the Pali is kappa, or in Sanskrit is kalpa. And the Buddha said, an aeon is long, monk. It's not easy to count it and say it is so many years, or so many hundreds of years, or so many thousands of years, or so many hundreds of thousands of years. And the monk asked, then is it possible to give a simile, Venerable Sir? It is possible, monk, the Blessed One said. Suppose, monk, there was a great stone mountain, 1 yojana long, 1 yojana wide, and 1 yojana high, without holes or crevices, one solid mass of rock. I'll stop here for a moment. 1 yojana refers to a long length, and it's supposed to be 10 kilometers, 10 kilometers or 10 miles. Say we assume it's 10 kilometers. So this solid rock is 10 kilometers high, 10 kilometers long, and 10 kilometers wide. A solid cube. At the end of every 100 years, a man would stroke it once with a piece of kasi or Kasian cloth. Let's stop here for a moment. This Kasi is a city. It's a great trading center. So Kasian cloth is a very fine cloth, something like silk. So you take a very fine cloth, you are only allowed once in 100 years to rub that solid rock. That great stone mountain might by this effort be worn away and eliminated, but the aeon would still not have come to an end. So long is an aeon, monk, and aeons of such length. We have wandered through so many aeons, so many hundreds of aeons, so many thousands of aeons, so many hundreds of thousands of aeons. For what reason? Because, monk, this samsara is without discoverable beginning, and it is enough to be liberated from them. So, you see, the simile given of a world cycle is so long. This solid rock is so huge, you are only allowed to rub it only once in 100 years, only once, and with a soft cloth. How long it will take to wear away that rock? And yet the Buddha says the rock would have finished worn away, and yet 1 aeon has not passed. So it's like almost impossible to count how long that aeon is. So remember the Buddha said he contemplated the last 91 world cycles and saw only 6 Sammasambuddhas willing to teach the Dhamma. And then I mentioned also the last 3 Buddhas were on this world cycle. That means the last 90 world cycles, there were only 3 Sammasambuddhas. That means 30 world cycles before you meet one Sammasambuddha. Such a long time. So if we don't make use of this Dhamma now, we are not going to meet it. We have to suffer so much. Our tears will fill another 4 great oceans. 15.13 at Rajagaha in the bamboo grove. Then 30 monks from Pava approached the Blessed One, all forest dwellers, alms food eaters, rag robe wearers, triple robe users, yet all were still with fetters. Stop here for a moment. These 30 monks, if I'm not mistaken, this story I think is found in the Vinaya or somewhere. About these 30 monks, they are all very ascetic monks. They dwell in the forest, they only beg for their food, and they wear rag robes, and they use only one set of robes. It's called the triple robe. Triple robe refers to only one set of robes. And if I'm not mistaken, in the Vinaya books it says they had come a long way, they wanted to see the Buddha. And then the rain season was coming. So they hurried, but they could, because they walked from so far to come and see the Buddha. In those days in India they have to walk. So when the rain season started, they had not yet arrived at the Buddha's place. So they had to be content to stay in some place and spend the 3 months Vasa, rains retreat period there. So immediately after the rains retreat ended, they came to see the Buddha. So during the rains, they were longing to see the Buddha because probably either they have not seen the Buddha before or they haven't seen the Buddha for a long time. And these were all good monks, but they were still with fetters, meaning they have not attained arahanthood. Having approached, they paid homage to the Blessed One and sat down to one side. Then it occurred to the Blessed One, these 30 monks from Pava are all forest dwellers, alms food eaters, rag robe wearers, triple robe users, yet all are still with fetters. Let me teach them the Dhamma in such a way that while they are sitting in these very seats, their minds will be liberated from the taints by non-clinging. So the Buddha pitied them, and since they had come so far away to see the Buddha appreciated them also because they are such ascetic monks. The Buddha very much appreciated ascetic monks because he himself was very ascetic. So he thought he wanted to help them to attain arahanthood. Then the Blessed One addressed those monks thus, monks, Venerable Sir, those monks replied. The Blessed One said this, monks, this samsara is without discoverable beginning. The first point is not discerned of beings roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. What do you think, monks, which is more, the stream of blood that you have shed, when you were beheaded as you roamed and wandered on through this long course, this or the waters in the 4 great oceans? As we understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, Venerable Sir, the stream of blood that we have shed when we were beheaded as we roamed and wandered on through this long course, this alone is more than the waters in the 4 great oceans. Good monks, it is good that you understand the Dhamma taught by me in such a way. The stream of blood that you have shed when you were beheaded as you roamed and wandered on through this long course, this alone is more than the waters in the 4 great oceans. For a long time, monks, you have been cows, and when as cows you were beheaded, the stream of blood that you shed is greater than the waters in the 4 great oceans. For a long time you have been buffalo, sheep, goats, deer, chickens and pigs. For a long time you have been arrested as burglars, highwaymen and adulterers. And when you were beheaded, the stream of blood that you shed is greater than the waters in the 4 great oceans. For what reason? Because, monks, this samsara is without discoverable beginning. It is enough to be liberated from them. This is what the Blessed One said. Elated, those monks delighted in the Blessed One's statement. And while this exposition was being spoken, the minds of the 30 monks from Pava were liberated from the taints or asavas by non-clinging. So, when the monks realized that we have been in samsara for so long, our blood we have shed so much that they experienced revulsion. dispassion, and they just let go of their clinging, and became arahants. 15.14 until 19, the Buddha said, Ch.15, monks, this samsara is without discoverable beginning. It is not easy, monks, to find a being who in this long course has not previously been your mother, or your father, or your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter. For what reason? Because, monks, this samsara is without discoverable beginning. It's enough to be liberated from them. Here, these few suttas, the Buddha says, it's very difficult to meet some being who has not previously been related to us in some way. Even the dogs and the animals and all other persons that we meet, even devas and devis and ghosts, we meet them also, all have been related to us. Very difficult to find a being who has not been related to us. So because of this, you should consider sometimes you are angry with somebody. You should try to realize that we have all been related before, and try to be kind to everybody. 15.20. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Rajagaha on Mount Vulture Peak. There the Blessed One addressed the monks thus, Monks, Noble Sir, those monks replied. The Blessed One said, Monks, this samsara is without discoverable beginning. The first point is not discern of beings roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. In the past, monks, this Mount Vipula was called Pachinavamsa, and at that time these people were called Tivaras. The lifespan of the Tivaras was 40,000 years. They could climb Mount Pachinavamsa in 4 days and descend in 4 days. At that time, the Blessed One, Kakusanda and Arahant Samasambuddha had arisen in the world. His two chief disciples were named Vidura and Sanjiva, an excellent pair. See, monks, that name for this mountain has disappeared. Those people have died, and that Blessed One has attained final Nibbana. So impermanent are volitions, monks, so unstable, so unreliable. It is enough, monks, to experience revulsion towards all volitions, enough to become dispassionate towards them, enough to be liberated from them. At another time in the past, monks, this Mount Vipula was called Vankaka, and at that time these people were called Rohitasas. The lifespan of the Rohitasas was 30,000 years. They could climb Mount Vankaka in 3 days and descend in 3 days. At that time, the Blessed One, Kona, Gamana, and Arahant Samasambuddha had arisen in the world. His two chief disciples were named Biyosa and Uttara, an excellent pair. See, monks, that name for this mountain has disappeared. Those people have died, and that Blessed One has attained final Nibbana. So impermanent are volitions, so unstable, so unreliable, etc. It is enough to experience revulsion, experience this dispassion towards them, enough to be liberated from them. At still another time in the past, monks, this Mount Vipula was called Supasa. At that time, these people were called Supiyas. The lifespan of the Supiyas was 20,000 years. They could climb Mount Supasa in 2 days and descend in 2 days. At that time, the Blessed One, Kassapa, Arahant, Samasambuddha, had arisen in the world. His two chief disciples were named Chisa and Bharadvaja, an excellent pair. See, monks, that name for this mountain has disappeared. These people have died, and that Blessed One has attained final Nibbana. So impermanent are volitions, so unstable, so unreliable, etc. It is enough to be liberated from them. At present, monks, this Mount Vipula is called Vipula, and at present these people are called Magadhans. The lifespan of the Magadhans is short, limited, fleeting. One who lives long lives 100 years or a little more. The Magadhans climb Mount Vipula in an hour and descend in an hour. At present I have arisen in the world, and Arahant Samasambuddha. My chief two disciples are named Sariputta and Moggallana, an excellent pair. There will come a time, monks, when the name for this mountain would have disappeared, and these people would have died, and I would have attained final Nibbana. So impermanent are volitions monks, so unstable, so unreliable. It is enough monks to experience revulsion towards all volitions, enough to become dispassionate towards them, enough to be liberated from them. This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One, the teacher, further said this. This was called Pachina Vangsa by the Tivaras, and Vankaka by the Rohitasas, Supasa by the Supya people, Vipula by the Magadan folk. Impermanent, alas, are volitions. Their nature is to arise and vanish. Having arisen, they cease. Their appeasement is blissful. This word I mentioned as volitions. Another translation is conditioners. The things of the world condition others, and they are also conditioned by others. So in this sutta, this very same mountain, a long time ago, you need 4 days to climb up. That means it used to be very high. 4 days to climb up. At that time, the people's age was 40,000 years. Then later, the mountain became shorter and took 3 days to climb up. At that time, the people's age was 30,000. And then later still, when another Buddha appeared, it took only 2 days to climb up. And the people's age was 20,000 years. And now the Buddha says, you only need 1 hour to climb up. And the people's age is only about 100 years. It shows the mountains can go shorter and shorter. So the Buddha says, everything in the world passes away like a dream. So enough should not cling to anything in the world.